What did you see out there?
I wouldn't know.
What do you see out there, Scotty?
Sky, water.
Must have a special meaning for her. What does it mean to you?
I don't know. I'm not a psychiatrist.
You don't have to be to figure this out.
The Chase from 1946 was one of the most unique crime films I've seen in a long time, in that there is a substantial twist to this one. It takes place about midway through the film, and I'll be honest, it really had me tripped up the first time I watched this film. But it's such a big part of the story. You know, much like the time that I reviewed the classic crime film Laura, that had a big twist in the middle as well, I want to give a fair warning before diving into this review that I am going to summarize the film. Now, even without giving away the final spoiler of the film, you know, how it ends, I am still going to need to talk about that one big weird twist in the middle of this film. And, you know, what's odd is that it kicks in close to the 1 hour mark. That's when you notice it, and the film is only about an hour and a half. So it's really something. So anyhow, if you would like to see the twist for yourself, you won't hurt my feelings. You can go ahead and stop the review here. Go watch the film. There are many copies of this film on YouTube. It's in the public domain. But if you want to just kind of come along and hear my summary, that's great too. You know, this film was really a trip. It starred Robert Cummings, Michele Morgan, Steve Cochran, and Peter Lorre, and was directed by Arthur D. Ripley. I'm going to give a summary of the film, spoiler-free, well, you know, except for the crazy twist in the middle, which I just have to talk about. And then I'll offer some closing thoughts. So the film opens up with our hero, Chuck Scott, played here by Robert Cummings. Now, he's a war veteran, and apparently he's low on funds. And we find him looking at a window at a man cooking some breakfast. And I love it because this is literally me every Saturday morning making bacon and pancakes just like that. In fact, I've even had an electric griddle that I would use. It looks a lot like this one. Well, Chuck is hungry and he's broke, but he finds a wallet on the floor in front of him. Looking through it, he finds some money. And yeah, he's going to have a nice breakfast, followed by a smoke. Well, Chuck looks through the wallet and he sees a name and an address on a card, and he decides to do the right thing. And he's going to bring it back to the owner. So he shows up at this very swanky place. This is in Florida, in Miami somewhere, and it's this big mansion. Knocks on the door, and I don't know, the person here might be a little bit paranoid, kind of peeks out through an eye hole. Well, they let him inside, and we see Peter Lorre as the character of Gino. Now, he goes off to get Mr. Roman. Now, Steve Cochran as this Eddie Roman character is just fantastic in this film. You just have to watch him here, as he's got this electric, creepy stare, a soft-spoken manner, and just kind of a eerie smile. You know, we see 1 minute he's complimenting his hairdresser, and then the next he's just lashing out in rage and slapping away the woman who accidentally made a mistake on his pedicure. So Steve Cochran also played the tough thug in the movie White Heat with James Cagney. So he's got experience playing the creepy crook in films like this. Well, he meets with Chuck, who returns the wallet. So Roman checks out this guy, seems to think he's legit, and offers him a job as a driver. And soon enough, he's off on the road as a chauffeur, giving Eddie Roman and Gino a drive. Now, this is a neat gimmick in the film. As you watch the film, Roman's in the back seat, and he opens up this little compartment on the floor, and he has the ability to take over control of the car's accelerator and brake. Pretty cool invention, actually. I was joking with my wife about this, that we need something like this for the car when I'm the passenger seat and I want to help with the brakes, but she says I'm crazy. Well, anyhow, watch what happens as he uses this device as a train draws closer.
Mr. Roman, there's something wrong. I can't slow the car down.
Relax, Scotty. I take care of all that back here. You just handle the wheel.
You mean you...
That's right.
Yes?
He's right on time.
Eddie, you don't know how he drives.
We'll find out.
Maybe not.
How do you feel, Scotty?
Well, fine. But I don't get it.
Who does? Yeah, he's all right. He's a good chauffeur. You're all right, Scotty.
Thanks. What do we do now?
You take over. She's all yours.
Now later, Roman and Gino meet with Mr. Johnson, played by actor Lloyd Corrigan. And they have a drink together and some laughs, and they're there with Roman's wife, Lorna, played by lovely actress Michele Morgan. They'd like to buy some of the boats that this Mr. Johnson owns, but he's just not interested in selling. They seem a little bit disappointed, and there's kind of some creepy tension to the scene, but they go ahead and allow him to go and see their wine cellar. And while he's looking at the bottles and he's really impressed by some of the ages of some of these old wines, it's here that he finds himself alone. And as suddenly he's looking for help, he has an unfortunate encounter.
Gino! Gino! Oh, no. Gino! Oh, no. 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 No! No, no! 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 No, get away! No!
I had to include that scene because, man, for 1946, this film was wild. Well, later, Chuck takes Lorna for a drive as a chauffeur, and although he should know better, he appears to be looking at Lorna as they drive. And I mean, yeah, she's very beautiful, but come on, man, you should know better. Because her crime boss boyfriend is not going to look too fondly on this behavior. But anyhow, she asks for him to stop by the ocean and goes out on a dock so she can look at the crashing waves. And he walks over to stand by her. He tells her not to go too close to the water. And she asks, what's out beyond the ocean? And Chuck talks about Cuba and what all is there. And it's here that Lorna offers him a big sum of money to take her there by steamship to get away and to get to Havana. So he tells her he will get her there. It's going to take some time to get some tickets, but he will be in touch with her. Soon enough, he's able to order some tickets on the SS Cuba. So now a little bit later, while driving Roman and Gino around, He wants to know, where is it that Lorna always goes? So Chuck shows him the ocean stops so they can get out and look at the water. Now, the suspicion is nice here. It's very subtle. Roman thinks that maybe she wants to leave, and maybe, just maybe, he suspects Chuck knows more than he's saying. Well, a little bit later, Chuck lays down to take a nap. Yeah, he takes a nap. And then we cut over to Roman at his home. He's listening to really loud orchestral music when Gino tells him they're gone. They've left for Cuba. Chuck is gone, and he's left with Lorna. So in a cabin on the steamer together, Lorna talks with Chuck, concerned that they will find her. They'll find a way to track her down, but he assures her that things will be okay. And the two draw close together, and the music is all beautiful, and the two are now in a romantic relationship together and on the run. And, I have to say, for this film, particularly this scene, Michele's score for the film is really beautiful. This is some great music. And, while they're together alone in this cabin, I'm sure they're just holding hands and talking romantically, of course.
Chuck.
Well, they've made it to Havana, and Havana of the 1940s is glamorous and romantic and mysterious. Well, they head to a bar, and they dance together, and they kiss. And I love these mysterious locales with the suspicious-looking characters all about. The setting is fabulous with a smoky atmosphere, almost a Casablanca vibe to it. Even the music kind of takes a sinister turn to it. The couple, they embrace and they confess their love for one another, and then a photo snaps, and Lorna is stabbed, falls to the ground, with Chuck finding the blade in her back. And, as they do in the movies, he takes it out, holds it in his hand, and stares at it while everybody around him watches. Well, of course, he's arrested, and the local police interrogate him. We have Lieutenant Acosta asks him questions about the knife that he used. Now, Chuck tells him that the knife that was used looked a lot like his, but wasn't the same. So they go to the shop to try to find out if he was telling the truth, but the shopkeeper tells the wrong story, and that he did indeed buy the knife that was used for the murder. Well, seeing that he is trapped, Chuck trips some wires on the floor to cause a distraction, and then he runs. Well, Chuck runs all around trying to find photos or anything to prove his innocence, and finally, he returns to the shop from which the knife had been purchased. Now, Gino, however, is already there, and he shoots the shopkeeper and, noticing some movement from another side of the room, charges in behind a curtain. There's some gunshots, and he kills Chuck and drops him down the shop stairs. But wait, the phone is ringing in the shop, and this transitions to Chuck, who is back at Roman's mansion. He's in bed and he's sweating heavily, and he wakes up from a dream. That's right, roughly from the 30-minute mark of the film to the 1-hour mark, this was all just a dream sequence. And I know what some of you might be thinking. What? A dream sequence? It was all just a dream gimmick made famous in films like Bela Lugosi Meets a Brooklyn Gorilla from 1952? Well, basically our hero, prior to leaving for Cuba, had laid down to take a nap So none of the scenes that we saw in the film of the steamship, of them embracing in love, of the scenes at the club in Cuba, the running around trying to solve the murder, none of that took place at all. It was just a vibrant fever dream that all took place in Chuck's head. I'll just say at this point, I read a lot of reviews for the film, and more than a few people were unhappy with this device while some liked it. I'll admit that it threw me off at first watching it. And then when I watched it again, and I picked up when he took his nap and when he woke up, it started to make a little more sense, I think. You know, I dream at night, and it's usually I'm driving on a flooded highway, or I'm in an abandoned office building filled with bathrooms, trying to find one that isn't occupied. But whatever. This guy has some very vibrant dreams. So, back to the review. As the film gets into the post-dream part of the film, it does take an interesting direction. Now remember, Chuck is a veteran and he's suffering apparently from PTSD. So he goes to the Naval Hospital, and there he tells his friend and his doctor, this Commander Davidson, played by Jack Holt, what has happened. Now, Chuck at this point is completely disoriented from the heaviness of this dream. And he doesn't seem to be aware of what is going on. There's sort of a bit of a disconnect from reality that we can see. And Chuck feels he's forgetting something, and he just keeps looking at the clock. Well, the doctor takes Chuck to a nightclub for a drink, and it just happens to be the same nightclub where Roman and Gino are also having a drink. When Chuck sees them, this brings back his memory, and he suddenly heads back to the house for Lorna. Now, meanwhile, Roman discovers that Chuck had purchased 2 tickets to Cuba, and he and Gino rush to the docks to intercept. But can they make it there in time to catch him? Will Chuck and Lorna get away? Or is this possibly another fever dream? Well, no spoilers. You need to see the end of this film for yourself. So let me share some closing thoughts here. The Chase was a 1946 crime film directed by Arthur Ripley. The screenplay was by Philip Yordan and was based on Cornell Woolrich's 1944 novel, The Black Path of Fear. It was produced by Nero Films, and if Wikipedia is to be believed, it is in the public domain. I honestly don't think Nero Films is around anymore, and considering there are so many copies of this film, good quality copies on YouTube, I think you're safe to go ahead and find a copy. Now, my thoughts on this one. Realizing that people might be mixed on the dream sequence idea. I'll be honest, I actually liked it. Because once I figured out what had happened in the film, yeah, it does take a couple watches. At least for me it did. Because it's not like the film is very intentional that you pick up on the fact that Chuck is lapsing into a dream sequence. You know how like you watch some movies and they do the warbles, you know, when the screen gets all warped. And I know it's just the filmmakers are trying to tell us and emphasize the fact that, yes, here comes a dream sequence. But no, we don't see any of that. Chuck is in his room. He's dressed, ready for Cuba. He's reading a newspaper. And he just seemingly lies down to take a nap. And the way the film unfolds, the next thing you know, he's on his way to Cuba. But it's in his dreams. But we aren't really clear on that. And the first time watching this, you think, oh, okay, he laid down, took a nap, woke up, he's off to Cuba. So that's where you can really get thrown the first time. At least I thought. Some people might see the dream sequence as a cheat. But in thinking about it, I like it. I like how they did it because it makes it into a film that you have to watch again, I think. Almost like a film like Sixth Sense, you know, because you get to the big reveal and you think, wait a minute, how did I miss that? You know? Now, the other thing is this, and this is just my thoughts in analyzing the film. The character of Chuck, he's presented as a World War II veteran and one who is clearly struggling with psychological issues following the war. He's on pills. He's seeing a doctor. And I've seen this type of theme used in other films of this era, generally late 1940s, such as Ride the Pink Horse with Robert Montgomery, where there's a character back from the war, they're trying to find their place, and they're still struggling with the trauma of what they saw in the war and how it affects them mentally. Now, in this case, because we find out Chuck is a veteran with these issues, I thought it added an interesting dimension to these dreamlike sequences of him running around Cuba trying to solve a murder. Maybe the weird dramatic dreams involving death in running. I don't know. Maybe that's helping him visualize and work through some of his post-war struggles that is going through in his head. That weirdness of it all and how he awakes sweaty and feverish, swallowing his pills. I think this helps us see a little bit more that this isn't just a dream. He's got some major struggles going on in his head. He's dealing with some major psychological trauma. And this is the way that the movie lets us in. So that's kind of how I saw it. And that's why I liked it so much. But again, I understand and I can empathize with people that watched it and thought, oh, they just did it's just a dream gimmick. But I think it's more than that. And I think, it's worth checking out for yourself to see. See if you agree with me. Let me know in the comments if I'm way off my mark here, but I actually like that part of the film. Now, as far as the acting of the film, I thought Robert Cummings did a really convincing job here. As initially, we see him, he's presented as a decent Joe. He's just this guy, he wants some breakfast, he's broke, he's just trying to find his place post-war. And we see that he's willing to take pretty much any job, including driving around a sketchy criminal character. And he's also someone who is able to keep his cool, even when the guy behind him pulls out that weird backseat accelerator pedal thing. Now, the character Chuck should have known better than to mess around with the maul of the crime boss. But these guys never seem to learn in these old films. Michele Morgan as Lorna Roman, technically the wife of the mobster. I thought she was very lovely and very mysterious in this film, had a mystique to her. What's disappointing, though, is that for the most part of the dream part of the film, she's just not there. It goes from couple on the run, which I think is always a lot of fun, to man on the run alone. And yes, I know that she returns once the dream sequence is over, as the death was in his dream. Yeah, I know, it's trippy. But, I think I would have liked it more if both of them had been together, both on the run, both trying to get away from the law and solve the mystery together. So that was just my only take. She's a great actress, and I would have liked to have seen just a little bit more of her and maybe a little more character development. Now, Steve Cochran as Eddie Roman. As mentioned earlier, I thought he was so good in this film as this cold, soft-spoken crime boss. Now, in a way, as I was watching him, I was reminded almost of a younger Colin Farrell from, say, films like Minority Report. Maybe it's the eyebrows. I don't know. But he was just great here as this cold criminal. He's got that creepy smile, whenever he would take control of the car and make it speed up. And I really liked his character. I will have to say again, kind of wish there was more of him in this film, but what we do see is excellent. And as always, it's fun to see Peter Lorre, kind of jaded creep. He's not quite as cool as his boss, Roman, but he's still excellent as this accomplice, and always fun to watch him in an old film like this. So yeah, this one was really something, and I enjoyed it. Definitely one of the more unique spins I've seen in an old film. And it's great in that you watch it, it catches you off guard, and you kind of find yourself thinking about that twist a little bit later on. And it is, as mentioned, worth watching a couple times just to kind of catch that dream sequence when it begins and ends and how that impacts the story. The Chase was from 1946. It was an excellent crime film. I love the chase sequences from the dream. I think that's probably the highlight of the film for me. The acting and the pace were all great. I like the story. And, for all of the weirdness of the film, I think it was great. and it's definitely one that's worth checking out.